What if I told you the history you learned in school about the discovery of the Americas was missing its most dramatic chapter? Long before Columbus, one of the most advanced civilizations on Earth thrived in secret. They built floating cities, possessed a complex understanding of astronomy, and ruled a massive empire. This was the Aztec Empire, and its downfall wasn't just a conquest. It was one of the most shocking and rapid collapses in human history. How could an empire of 5 million people be brought down by just 500 men? The answer wasn't just in their weapons. It was a perfect storm of a terrifying prophecy, a silent, invisible killer, and a technological clash that would change the world forever. The story begins with a god. Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, was a powerful Aztec deity who, according to legend, had sailed east, promising to one day return from the sea. The prophecy foretold his return in the year 1 read. By a staggering coincidence, the year 1519 in the European calendar was 1 read in the Aztec calendar, and in that very year Hernán Cortés and his Spanish conquistadors landed on the coast. For the Aztec Emperor Montezuma, this wasn't an invasion, it was a divine event. He hesitated, believing Cortés could be the returning god. This hesitation would be his first fatal mistake. The Spanish brought with them the weapons of a different world. Steel swords that shattered the Aztecs, obsidian blades, cannons that terrified their warriors, and horses which the Aztecs had never seen before and viewed as monstrous beasts. This was the steel part of the equation. But the deadliest weapon the Spanish brought was one they couldn't see: smallpox. The indigenous peoples of the Americas had no immunity to European diseases. This was the germs factor. While the Spanish fought the Aztec warriors, a silent, invisible plague swept through Tenochtitlan, killing with horrifying speed. It is estimated that smallpox wiped out up to 40% of the city's population in a single year. It killed warriors, leaders, and civilians indiscriminately, shattering the morale and structure of the Aztec Empire far more effectively than any sword or cannon could. The fall of the Aztec Empire wasn't just a military victory, it was a complex and tragic event, driven by prophecy, technology, and a devastating pandemic. It was a brutal collision of two worlds that ended an empire and reshaped a continent forever. Now, let's dive deeper into this incredible story. The Aztec capital Tenochtitlan was an engineering marvel. Imagine a city larger than any in Europe at the time, built on an island in the middle of a lake. It was a metropolis of gleaming white pyramids, intricate canals acting as streets, and vast, colorful marketplaces teeming with goods from across the empire. The Aztecs weren't just warriors, they were sophisticated astronomers, poets, and artists. Their society was highly structured, with a noble class, a priest class, and a huge population of commoners and farmers. They had mandatory education for both boys and girls, something unheard of in Europe at the time. Their understanding of the cosmos was so advanced that their calendar was more accurate than the one the Europeans were using. So, how did this vibrant, powerful civilization become so vulnerable? The key lies in understanding their worldview. Religion permeated every aspect of Aztec life. Their gods were powerful and demanding, and the Aztecs believed they needed to be appeased through ceremonies and sacrifices to keep the universe in balance. The prophecy of Quetzalcoatl's return was not just a myth, it was a core belief etched into their spiritual identity. When reports reached Emperor Montezuma II of strange pale-skinned, bearded men arriving from the east in floating mountains, accompanied by creatures that looked like giant deer, it fit the prophecy almost perfectly. Montezuma was a deeply religious man, but also a seasoned political leader. He was trapped. If these were men, he needed to crush them. But if this was truly Quetzalcoatl, defying him would mean defying a god and risking cosmic chaos. So, he chose a middle path. He sent lavish gifts of gold and feathers, hoping to appease the newcomers and perhaps persuade them to leave. But for the conquistadors, led by the ambitious and ruthless Hernán Cortés, these gifts had the opposite effect. They weren't a sign of respect. They were proof of immense wealth, fueling their greed and resolve to conquer. Cortés' genius was not just in military tactics, but in political manipulation. He quickly learned about the Aztec Empire's internal politics. The Aztecs ruled over many smaller city-states, demanding tribute and sacrificial victims. Many of these subject peoples hated the Aztecs. Cortés exploited this resentment, forging alliances with tribes like the Tlaxcalans who became crucial allies, providing tens of thousands of warriors to fight alongside the Spanish. So, the conquest wasn't just 500 Spaniards against 5 million Aztecs. It was a massive civil war, ignited and exploited by Cortés. This brings us to the technological mismatch, the steel in this tragic equation. An Aztec warrior, no matter how brave, was at a severe disadvantage. Their primary weapon was the macuahuitl, a wooden club embedded with razor-sharp obsidian shards. It was terrifying and could inflict horrible wounds, but it shattered against Spanish steel armor. The Spanish had steel swords, pikes, and crossbows. More importantly, they had firearms and cannons. While slow to reload and inaccurate, the psychological impact of the sound, smoke, and destructive power of gunpowder was immense. And then there were the horses. The Aztecs had no large domesticated animals. The sight of a man on horseback, moving as one entity, seemed like a monstrous centaur from another world. These cavalry charges could break through Aztec formations with devastating effect. The battle for Tenochtitlan was brutal. The Aztecs fought with incredible ferocity, defending their home street by street, canal by canal. At one point, they even drove the Spanish out of the city in an event the Spanish called La Noche Triste, or the Sad Night, where hundreds of conquistadors were killed. It seemed the Aztec Empire might survive. But then, the invisible killer arrived. A single Spanish soldier, an African slave in the entourage of another Spanish expedition that came to reign in courts, was sick with smallpox. That one case was all it took. In the densely populated city of Tenochtitlan, the virus spread like wildfire. The Aztecs had no concept of quarantine and no natural immunity. The disease was horrific. People were covered in painful sores, often becoming blind, and died within days. The disease didn't care if you were a fierce warrior or a helpless child. It crippled the Aztec leadership, with Montezuma's successor dying from the disease just 80 days after taking the throne. The stench of death filled the city. While the Spanish were largely immune, having been exposed to the disease for centuries, the Aztec population was decimated. Their social structure collapsed. Who would farm the food? Who would lead the armies? The gods seemed to have abandoned them. This biological catastrophe broke their spirit in a way no army ever could. When Cortés returned to besiege Tenochtitlan, he faced a city already hollowed out by disease. He cut off the causeways and aqueducts, starving the remaining inhabitants. After a brutal 93-day siege, the city fell. The once magnificent capital was a smoldering ruin, filled with the bodies of the dead. The fall of the Aztec Empire was a turning point in world history. It wasn't a simple story of brave explorers or evil conquerors. It was a confluence of cultural misunderstanding, political ambition, technological disparity, and, most devastatingly, a biological apocalypse. The ruins of that great empire literally buried beneath the streets of modern-day Mexico City, a silent testament to a world that was lost. This story serves as a powerful reminder of how interconnected our world is, and how events from centuries ago continue to shape the continent and the world we live in today. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey back in time. If you found this story as fascinating as we do, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into the most incredible stories from history. We'll see you in the next one.